Again, we're in session C, paved and unpaved roadway surfaces. Our next topic is limestone gradation specifications for county road surfacing and construction. Our presenter will be Marc Whitman with Wendling Quarries, and we're going to go right on into that topic. So.
Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. Please, during my presentation here, if you have any questions, pipe up, and we don't have to wait till the end of it. But today I'm going to go through some information. I'm not going to tell you how to build your roads or what kind of materials to use to build it. But I'm going to look at the 1991 research program that was done on grading for road rock surfacing by different counties. And I'll talk a little bit about how we set up to make sure we've got quality materials coming out of our quarries. We work extensively with the Iowa Department of Transportation to set up our quarries, to know the geology of them and how that relates to the quality of aggregate that we make, not only for concrete stone, asphalt stones, but for your road-based materials, your surfacing materials, riprap, erosion stones, and other stones. And we'll look at the 1991 research program done by Ken Bergeson with Iowa State. It shows a little bit about some different gradings that were used and some studies done to look at the rideability, the roughness of the roadways, the braking distance, safety related, and dust control, or dust emission, safety and nuisance. And then I think his research shows that the throw-off really wasn't greatly related to gradation. But one thing I will tell you, the ILPA booth downstairs has a summary of that study. That study with all of its data is about 78 pages long. And if anyone would like that whole study to look at all the data, I'm not going to go through all that data today, but if you would like that, we certainly would have that through the ILPA. Okay. The ILPA, we have different committees. I serve on the ILPA technical committee. We put out a questionnaire about who would like to speak today, and since I'm the new chair and nobody volunteered for that, I'm your speaker today. The Randy Olson, who has handed out our agenda today, is our executive director, and Jan Nelson is the director of our member services. They have a booth downstairs, so please stop by and see them. I'm a part of, like I said, the ILPA Technical Committee. We have 25 members this year. We meet annually with the Department of Transportation, and we talk about reviewing, modifying, adding, or deleting specifications. And we like to enhance our communication between their inspectors, our inspectors. They regulate us. And our goals are consistency and to be proactive in problem-solving procedures. And I guess if I have one main advice to you folks, if you're county engineers or you're working with the folks in the quarry industry, have those type of meetings annually. And I'd like to see it more between not just engineers and salespeople, but involve people like myself and our quality control. I'm the head of quarry development at a company named Wendling Quarries. My background was 20 years of quality control and 18 years now in quarry development. So we all work together to try to give you a quality product and something that'll work for your end use. We work, like I said, closely with the DOT to set up our quarries, and all the quality testing pretty much runs through the DOT. So whether you like it or not, the quality checks and monitoring of your products is pretty much through the DOT, and I think it's a really good system. They not only help us set our sites up, but they regulate our quality control that has to be brought up to date every year, and schooling, and probably some of the same thing if you've got inspectors you're going through. That's our ledge map. That helps us map our quarry sites. It tells us geologically what's at our site for our quarries. And that relates directly to the products you're getting, whether you're getting road surfacing materials, whether you're getting erosion materials, embankment materials, or concrete stones or asphalt. And then they take it a step beyond that, and they set up what they call a T203. And that's our guidebook for what each quarry site, each sand pit has, not only logistically where it's at, but what it has for quality related to all of your products. And it breaks it down even a little more detail into concrete and asphalt stones. It tells you the life expectancy and the classification of your concrete stones from a class 2, a class 3, a class 3I. It associates the amount of years that they expect those stones to maintain a good quality PCC concrete paving. And 3I, of course, is interstate. That's our top level. And if it's got a B next to it, it allows it to be used in your bridge decks. And the asphalt will show you frictional values. 1, which you just won't see around here. I don't know that it's ever used. 2, that is used in interstate. 3, with heavy traffic. And more, what you guys are going to be using for county levels will be frictional 4 and frictional 5. And if you look in there, it'll tell you what that means. And it'll tell you about our aggregates at our sites and where we need to bring them relative to that ledge mapping to produce product for you. And these are some of the specifications that they set up and some of the limits that we have. And if you're not familiar with those, we can easily get you all of those. So most of you, if you're county engineers, are probably just telling us the freeze thaw that it's got to meet and the abrasion that it's got to meet. But those things mean different things to me because I've got to bench our quarry sites and know where that's coming from. And as we get into this study a little bit, I think we may have some engineers, and please hold your hand up. Do you have any specifications for your road rocks that say, all right, if abrasion is this level and it's fairly low, your aggregate that you give us for surfacing material can be this fine, and do you make it cleaner if your abrasions are higher? Does anybody have those type of specifications in their county? I see one hand, okay? Those are things we can work with you because some of our eastern Iowa dolomites, as you get east of here, can be fairly soft. And as an aggregate producer, we can help clean those up because as they get broken down on your roadways, you're going to want a fairly clean material to start with if that's the case. And you don't want to have to pay for the extra mileage if we can't find it somewhat local, in my opinion. Okay, one of the things that we've got new is the alumina test. That's relative to a freeze thaw. Okay? The alumina test is a quicker test for the Iowa DOT to run that freeze thaw. It used to be they had to bring our materials in and run it through a couple weeks. They'd run it into an oven and they'd run it into a freezer. And an A freeze meant it had alcohol in it, and a C freeze meant it was just water. Alcohol being the more severe. So that gives them a quicker turnaround time for us. This is a new specification that's important to us, and it's going to be important to you for your asphalt projects coming up. The DOT is going to increase the freeze thaw limit and also the freeze thaw, whether it be A freeze or alumina test for our type A asphalt stones. Okay, and that's going to come into effect, we're hoping in April or possibly sooner. But I'm not going to go over that a whole lot today, but that will mean something different for your inspectors to look at in your asphalt projects coming up in 2018. They're going to increase the level of it, which opens up some more of our ledges to put into asphalt projects. And they've done that through a lot of research. Okay, county road stone for surfacing. That's one of the things we want to touch on because if they told me, well, we want you to speak on aggregate specifications and uses. Well, that list is about that long and probably take all day. So I've tried to kind of focus on this subject. You know, are you satisfied with your road surface performance? Or what was good for 3 generations ago is still good for 2 generations, still good for you? Or are we stuck in the same old spec and we just never look at changing it? We'll look at the road surface study that was done by, like I said, Ken Ferguson through Iowa State Civil Engineering Group in '91. They were looking at testing for the rideability, the roughness, washboarding, braking and handling, distances, safety related, and of course the dust generation relative to safety and nuisance. They've got 4 gradations that they used, and one thing to look at this that I want to put a little asterisk by, the material that was used for this project was exceptionally sound material. It had an abrasion that I believe was in the 20s, which you don't find a lot in certain parts of the state. So saying that, you may be able to get away with a little bit finer or a little bit dirtier or cleaner material, I'm sorry. This will allow you to use a little bit finer material because it's not going to break down much at all. In eastern Iowa, the abrasions that we're dealing with, when you start getting east of Benton County, are probably more in the 40s. You know, if you get into Devonian, the gray color, you can get down into those 30s, but if you get into Silverine, which are more of the brown rocks, you're going to get more into some of the 40s. So anyway, they had a fine gradation, and these were relative to the DOT Class A. You can see he's got 97 pretty much across the board other than the course, 89 passing the 3/4 inch. The 4 goes from course 28 up to fine 64. The 8 from 19 low to 40 for your fine, and your 200 from a 3 to your 12. So it's pretty much a drastic difference between the top and the bottom being fine and course. Then the study that was done, and you know, all the data that was done relative to those characteristics, and basically it stated that the finer material gave them a lower roughness factor, better rideability, better braking and handling, less dust, and they related that quite a bit to the 40 and the 200 acting as a binder to bring that coarse material together. In a little bit, I'm going to throw some of the specifications for the county road rocks that were sent to me by some of our producer members, and we'll kind of look to see where you were at on that chart. And I've highlighted a few of them just to look at and say, be careful with those specifications, the things you might not have that would allow an aggregate producer to give you a product that probably is not going to work for your road surfacing materials. And that's this guy right here. You know, you'll see a lot of those that pretty much range in that, you know, it looks like they want some 3/4 inch material in a lot of these specifications. And some of them that really want materials that, you know, are in the 1/2 and 3/8 range. I would be willing to guess, and we'll talk about it in a little bit, the general perception or the public perception of what you got out there is they need to see aggregate. If they see that finer material, I think a lot of feedback we get is, hey, your material is just all lime. It's too limey. And help us, I'm going to tell you later on, help us to help you get that study out there. And even if we need to meet at a board of supervisors meeting with our QC or development people to get involved with some of that information, you know, you're kind of the frontliners for that here in the complaints. But anyway, some of the highlighted ones. Let's look at the first course one. I don't even know if I've got a pointer on this guy. The first course one at the top, it's got 100 on the 1.25 inch and a 10 to 25 on the 8. It's good that they've got a 10 to 25 on the 8, kind of gives us an idea of an aggregate producer where we need to be. But if we end up 10% passing that 8, and we've got actually, you know, 1.5 inch top screen on, you can get nothing but darn near marbles out of that. Okay, that would make what we call almost a granular subbase material, which is meant to go under PCC paving, that's meant for good drainage. And I'd almost guarantee you, you're going to get a course ride on that, and you're going to get a lot of washboarding. My advice on that would be work with your aggregate producer and expand upon that specification. First and foremost, look at your 8 and look at what you're getting for performance out on the surfacing. Is it giving you the right ride? Is it giving you less dust? Is it giving you good braking distance? Or do you have quite a few roads that aren't performing like you want to? Because we can work with you on those things. Okay? because that allows us to put a decent top screen on when we go into production. But we're gonna make probably a lot of our cores, we're gonna make a lot of ag line that we'd just soon not do. And if we maybe even if we have to make that a little smaller top size and throw some more of our field lime or ag lime in it to make a better performance, the key is it's gonna perform better for you. The next one down, I've got some question marks on, and that is because and I could have put it the same way with the other one up above, but 15 to 30 and 6 through 16 is going to help that bottom side know that we've got an aggregate that's got some fines in it, some binder in it. But with nothing in between there and 100% on that 1.8" screen, we could be pretty coarse on anything that was +8. So if you throw a 4 spec in there, that's going to help that out a little bit, maybe even another spec between that inch and that 4, somewhere on the 3/8 or half. Now I've probably got producer members in there that are back there saying, we don't want more specifications, but we do want something that's going to work for you folks out on the grade. Another coarse one that's got 100% passing the inch and 0 to 10 on the 200. Our washed concrete stone would make that specification. And I know that's not what we're going to supply for you, and that's not what you want on the grade. So that one definitely needs to be worked with between the producers and the county engineers, and something else expanded upon that specification. And then anytime you've got a 0 here, I don't know if that was a typo with the folks that sent me their specifications, but those might as well be changed anyway, because if you're 25 to 35 on the second to the last one, you're at least 25 on that spec, so you might as well at least write it 25 to 50, and same way with 18 to 24, it's not 0 to 25, it's at least 18 to 75. So make those changes. Any comments or questions on this thing? Yes?
It appears that by choosing the high 100% and the large, are you talking more about an aggregate that might crush, a soft aggregate, as opposed to the hard aggregate you were talking about in eastern Iowa?
It's possible, but I would say the thing that I would advise, if you're going to throw 100 on the top screen and nothing all the way down to the 4 or 8, use your next size down from the 100 screen and put a specification on that. We call that the nominal maximum size material. If you want us to have some 3/4 in, work with us and work on a spec like this. Don't leave it so open that it's open from that top size clear down to an 1/8" screen. Okay, but I think hopefully that answers your question. And I like the idea. After doing 20 years of quality control and working with Eastern Iowa Dolomites that can get soft, to be able to sit down with county engineers and the supervisor members and say, hey, here's what we got for local aggregate. If you've got to have what you want, you're going to go another 15, 20 miles down the road. Okay, let's budget that into what you've got. But if you're willing to work with maybe a few of our softer materials and clean up those specifications so that when you get that breakdown that this gentleman's talking about, we're in that overall master range of gradation that we want on the road. That makes sense to everyone? Communication efforts, aggregate producers, and county engineer information exchange. Not only the gradation specifications that we've been talking about, but talk to us going into the season about your product needs. A lot of the sites that we go to, the company I work for, we're in 11 eastern Iowa counties and 3 western Illinois counties, and probably 75 to 80% of our sites are small or rural sites. We may go in there once a year, we may go in there once every other year. And we need to know whether you are wanting a Class A type of material, an inch road rock material. We've seen it quite a bit come springtime where you've had problems with frost boils. All of a sudden they're going into our 1.5" size material, our modified subbase, or our special backfill piles. And I realize that can be season to season depending on the weather related issues that you're dealing with. The more you can help us so that we've got an inventory of what you need, the better off we'll be. Because like I say, these portable sites we may only go into once every other year. So help us with those things. And don't be afraid to let us know if you've got some, areas that you want some erosion type of materials put up in some inventory just in case. Because I tell you what, the 100-year flood anymore comes every 5 years. So, you know, it might be a good idea for us to put some of those things in inventory. Okay. Good. Yeah. Delivery time frames. That's more of a salesman scenario, but work with us on those ends. And then the general public perception. You know, I put up there, help us to help you. Went out a couple of years ago and looked at a concrete driveway that had spalled really bad. And the gentleman had poured it late November. And the next spring, after a heavy snow and parking his vehicles on it and all the salt dripping on it, couldn't figure out why they had problems next spring. And the ready mix supplier had these bundles of how to and not to from the Ready Mix Association, and what you do with concrete slabs, and never handed those out. It'd be easier for those things to go out with a billing, I thought. And we started that practice so that people knew a little bit about that. They're investing a lot of money, and that seems sad that those sat in a box in the corner. We've got these studies, and Randy and Jan will be happy to work with you, as will we as your member producers, to get this type of information, not just to you, but you know, your board of supervisors. You know, people that need to know what we're dealing with and how you can get your best bang for your buck. Color is an interesting thing. I've heard many times over my career, you know, brown is good and gray is bad. And in instances that may be true. But I'll guarantee you, out of the 90-some quarry sites that we have, I can give you some brown aggregate that'll outperform the gray and vice versa. And I think it was best explained to me one time is when you sit down at the breakfast table and you bite into that bite of bacon, you know, do you know what color that hog was that produced that piece of meat? You don't. So, and I get involved with zoning and permitting meetings. And that's the biggest thing right now, is the fear of the unknown, or the unknown. So we really do want to help educate your folks and the general public. Limey, you know, that's a big one that we hear. And I don't care what you put on the road. If you're putting it on in the middle of August, if we went in and produced it, and it's bone dry when we've produced it, and it's bone dry when you're putting it on the road, you're going to have dust. And you're going to have dust in the middle of August, well, especially this late summer. You saw how many, it was great construction, but it was dry a long time. Bigger is better. I think the perception out there is they need to see that big aggregate to think we're actually giving them something for their money. But please look at your roadways and where you're putting bigger on. Are you getting better ride? Are you getting better brake distance? And you have to talk safety with those folks. Because you know as well as I do right now, you got young kids now that get that driver's permit going to school for morning ball practices or just to school in general. And they're not growing up on the farm and having all that experience sitting behind a wheel and having that knowledge of how to control some of the vehicles they're trying to handle coming in. So let's help that out too. And dust. I put down this just for, you know, if we had time. It looks like we've got time, but you know, as you're building roadways, you guys know this better than I know it. But soil conditions, the one thing I wanted to bring up about that is I work in quarry development, so I work with our dirt moving crew, I work with the hired crews. And if you need soils that are good soils for you to construct with, talk to your quarry people. You know, we have already benched our soils a lot of times in our quarry sites. We've already done the archaeological studies. We're good borrow pits. And of course with DOT not establishing borrow pits for contractors anymore, we like it that they come to us. We've already got the permitting process done. The one thing you'll have to do is have MSHA safety training for anybody that sits in an excavation piece of equipment. We can give you a disc, you can get that done in an 8-hour day. Okay? And we love having that dirt go out on sites for construction that where we don't have to handle it, move it, put this cost into it, and find room for it in our sites. That's one of the biggest challenges my department works with. We got 100,000 cubic yards out on a project last year for a earth and flood protection berm in Cedar Rapids. And we have things on in the list. We have proctors and things that we run on our soils. And I can't imagine that other members aren't doing that. So we'll work with you on those things if you need borrow. You know, the water table, you know, you run into instances that you need us to look at different types of aggregate so you get better water movement away from your roadways. Yeah, we'll work with you. We really will. Weather conditions, winter and summer, you know, when you're putting those things on, we have the ability to add water to our product if we need to. You know, a lot of times the DOT for our shouldering projects will have us put some water with it. And if that helps you get compaction, you know, you heard the gentleman speak before me, if you get some moisture in that material and you get it compact when you put it on, it may help you in certain instances. So, questions for me? Like I said, yes, sir.
You said a couple of times today that dolomites east of here can be soft, and I'm assuming that you mean relative to LA abrasion. Yet the specific gravity of Ordovician aged dolomites are typically 2.7 plus, and the specific gravity of like the central Iowa limestones are 2.6 minus. So what do you attribute that comment soft to?
Okay, just basically my experience, because I've done quality control for 20 years from the Tama-Toledo area all the way to the Mississippi River. We've got Silurian dolomites that are some of the most sound, durable, high specific gravity that you'll see. And in that same quarry, 200 feet away from that material that I'm alluding to, I can give you some of the softest, lowest SPG, highest abrasion material that you'll deal with. So it's very interesting. It's there's no one blanket. You're right. There's no one blanket statement that covers all. But that's one of the reasons why I'm glad you asked that. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to show you a little bit about how we establish our quarry benching with DOT. Because the geology that you experience in a quarry, all rock is not created equal, not just between sites, among different sites, but even in the same site. And you know, we've got some quarries, same thing. Some quarries that'll give you 3 IB concrete stone that can go on Interstate 80. But there's also ledges that happen to be a gray ledge that we can't do anything but make commercial product out of, because the freeze thaw that is in the 50s and 60s when you go A-freeze.
Do you see that same sort of thing within a time stratigraphic horizon from the same bench? Ever in your course?
Ever's a long time, but yeah, we have. We've got some work coming up, you know, on our quarry site to where, you know, sometimes it's from the early season to the mid-season to the end of the season, we have to work one bench differently, especially when we get into asphalt work. So if you're doing asphalt work and you're doing asphalt inspection with your people, asphalt is the most demanding products that we make, no doubt. Anything else? Well, thank you for being my audience today. Appreciate it.